Hey there, Plant Girl here. I'm going to be potting my Tuberous Begonias today. So you may have seen these in an earlier video where I had kind of trimmed them back a little bit to keep them from getting too leggy and to help them to bush out a little bit. But they're getting to the point where in these little pots, their roots are very full. Let's see if I can pull this one out for you. I don't know how well you can see that, but the roots are just really, really full. And so they're drying out all the time on me, and begonias really like to have a nice consistent moisture level. They're really happiest that way, they grow the best that way. And so I just went through my little spare pot selection and found some that are not overly deep, because begonias also like to still have a little bit of tightness around their root ball, which seems kind of contradictory, but I do want to give them a bit more room to grow their roots out so they're not drying out constantly. So this is just like a bump up in size from what they had. Not a huge change, but enough to give them a little bit more root space without having it super deep. If it's a really deep pot with the tuberous begonia, then there's a lot of moisture that's going to be hanging out at the bottom of the pot when you water it, and they might not be getting watered as evenly and kind of keeping that nice moist root space. It'll just be kind of maybe really dry on top and really wet at the bottom. So this just helps them to be happier if you can find shallow pots. So that's what I'm going to do. I think I have 11 plants here. So I'm just going to be taking them and potting them up. I was just going to do this and I thought, well, maybe some of you would find that interesting. So I'm going to do it for you, and you can see how I do it. Move that tray over, and I just have, for a mix here, I just have this feels like 2 pots. I just have mostly a peat moss. There's a little bit of leftover potting soil from another project in here, and I did add just a little bit of vermiculite and perlite just to help get kind of a nice drainage but also moisture kind of situation going on for them. This won't be what they're staying in long term. This is just to get them a little bump up in container size until they can be planted outside. So let's see here. How deep do I need this? That's too much. We're not going a lot taller, we're just going wider for the most part. So let's see if that should work. Let's see if we can pop that down in there. Take a tiny bit more off the bottom. There. So that should make it happier. I don't know how well you can see there. There's a little bit of space between the original root ball on the side of the container, so I'm just going to fill that up with soil. And then I'm also going to be putting them into 2 trays, so that'll give them a little more space. Right now they're kind of jammed together, and they're kind of competing for light, and that's part of why they're also continuing to be a little bit on the leggy side. They have bushed out some, but I'd like them to be able to have a bit more room to do that. So while I'm in here, I'm also going to come in and take down some of these stems a little bit again. I'm just going to, where some leaves are coming out and there's a node, I'm just going slightly ahead of that. I've been trying to come in and keep the flowers off. So I've had lots of little tiny begonia flower bouquets up in my kitchen, which is fun. I'll take some of these leaves that aren't looking so healthy off as well. So there's the first one, and it'll have more room now to grow out some more roots and to have a bit more light around the top, so hopefully it fills in with more leaves that way as well. I don't want this tray getting full of soil. How do I want to do this? Maybe like this. So, oh, I don't want to lose the tag though, or I'll forget what these are. That was Double Delight Primrose. Just a yellow double begonia. And this one is Belliconia Cream. Oh, this is a really pretty one. It's kind of a hanging down. I don't have any flowers open here, but it's like a double flower that hangs down in a very pale kind of pinky cream color. It's absolutely beautiful. And yeah, those roots are just very full in there. So let's get it a better pot so it can be happier. So these pots that I'm filling to put them in are just, like I said, pots that I've saved over the years that I just reuse when I'm doing projects like this. It works well. So if you do a lot of planting and potting up, it doesn't hurt if you have the space to save these things and reuse them. Actually, my friends, family, neighbors, everybody seems to know that I do a lot of gardening, and they save them for me, so it's really nice. I can pick and choose to get several that are kind of matching in size, which is quite handy. Tag. There's another Belliconia. I'm not sure how you say that. Belleconia. Just taking there's a few kind of dead leaves down at the bottom, so take those off. Tag out of my way. This one's really filled in pretty nicely. It just needs a bigger pot because the roots are also filling in nicely. It feels like the bulb part is actually up here. I don't know, there's kind of a thick area there. Oops, I just refilled the same pot. I just took it out. We don't need that. There we go. So these plants will stay in my house for quite a while yet. We're having extremely cold weather here in Saskatchewan, Canada. And it'll be several months until it's warm enough for begonias to be out. Our average last frost is in the middle to end of May around here. And it's now, what is it, February 15th, so we definitely have some time to grow these on more. I'll be getting any stored tubers of begonias that I have out next month, I think. I think it's usually March that I do that. And then we'll be getting them to start sprouting inside and planting them up once they sprout a little bit. Double Delight Primrose, is that what I said that was? Yeah, so let's... Oh, these roots are just crazy. This one looks like I maybe took a cutting of it. There's a bit of stem coming down here. I'm gonna take off some of this. Oops, ugly leaves. I didn't mean to take that much off, but oh well. Try and get it to bush out a bit more. This one's really kind of growing kind of wonky. I don't want to take too much, but at the same time, these just aren't even nice looking stems. Take them right back and see what it does. Maybe too much soil in there. Like I said, it's not a big bump up, just enough to give them a bit more root space. The soil's just moist enough to kind of form it around the edges of the pot like that. So I can push them in. I still don't like that. This one wasn't in much bigger of a pot, or much smaller of a pot. In fact, yeah, it's not much of a change. It's just a little bit deeper pot that I'm going into, so maybe a tight to try and get it in here. Yeah, that was almost the same size. A little extra room at the bottom and a little bit on this one side, but not a big change for this one. I also cut it way back, so we'll see what happens. This is a double delight. Oh, that one's just packed with roots. It's just dying. Wants some breathing space. If the tubers, if you do need to do something like this, the tubers don't like to be planted super, super deep, so it's best to keep them higher up if you need to use a deeper pot. It's best to keep the tubers near the top and not bury them down deep in the pot. In my experience, that keeps them happiest. There. Let's take some of those flowers off. Where that one's coming from. I'm just trying to get it to put more energy into growing out the leaves and settling in than putting out flowers right now. That's a beautiful plant though. Just gorgeous. That one's really bulked out nicely. It's a double pink. I have these little sticky traps in here. I always like to just keep a few going in the plants in my plant room. There's a couple of fungus gnats on them, but I haven't noticed any fungus gnats around in quite a while, and I've had those sticky traps in for months, so I'm guessing that maybe they took care of any issue I had and it's no more. So again, this isn't going to be a huge bump up. I'm going to use this Proven Winners pot. It's a little bit bigger, a little wider, but not as deep as some of them that I've been using, and maybe that'll be the key to this little bit bigger, because this one's definitely needing to be bumped up. There. It's a nice looking little plant. It's really filling in nicely. It just needs some more root space. I'm gonna have some very nice begonias this spring to plant out. It's a double pink, I think I said that is, yeah. Oop. This is another Belliconia. Keep setting them in my tray and then losing leaves in the soil. I don't want that. Tuck some soil down in there. I'm not as worried about leaving space to water these, because when I put them in these watertight trays on my grow shelves, I tend to water them from the bottom. So it's not as big of a deal to me if they get a little bit tight at the top here for soil. This Double Delight over here. This is another Belliconia cream. Again, it's filling out. It's just not as full as it could be. Now these are a bit of a daintier begonia, but think it could be a little fuller. And when you're that full of roots, it's hard to grow to your optimum point. The main thing is I just want to make sure that the soil's going all the way down and I don't have air pockets in there, because air pockets can rot roots and we don't want that. So I'm just making sure to use my finger to just kind of push the soil down along the edges and make sure that it's not leaving air pockets in there. It's a nice plant. It just needs to get a little fuller, so it just needs a little more room to spread out and do that. Another one of those. I think they're mostly, that's what they are. So let's take some of these. I thought I had some that weren't. Oh, here's a double delight pink. Yeah. So I'll take a couple out just to give them a little more room in that tray. Yeah, that's another double delight. And this is that yellow one. So there, we'll take the Belliconia, have all their own space. So I think I have 2 more here, and then the rest will have their own, and that'll just give them more room to kind of spread their leaves out, get light more all the way around. Now you might have noticed I didn't bother roughing up the roots on any of these. They're full, but they don't look like they're really wrapping and twisted in amongst each other. I think they'll still be able to spread out in the pots and find their way. They just need that space to do that. Begonias have a very fibrous root system, so they tend to kind of spread around. Find their way. I find more than some that have very strong, less roots, but they're very strong, big roots. Those tend to really wrap up and almost girdle the plant and don't seem to want to spread back out again. But yeah, you can see how this one's kind of growing. I don't know, can you see that? It's kind of sideways. So it's wider that way and skinnier that way. So if you give it a little more space around to get light from all angles, it'll do better. The last one, I'm pretty sure, yeah, it's a Belliconia cream. They just have a little bit different leaf. They're just a little bit finer, daintier kind of plant. Again, just full of roots. But I can see like the ends of the roots all over the place. Like they haven't gotten so bad that they can't find their way out and into new soil if it's available. So obviously I mixed up way too much soil, but we'll save it. Whoop, wrong pot. We'll save it for another project. This one's the same kind of way. Can you see that? It's kind of skinny that way. It's wider that way, so it just needs to be where it can just have a little more space to get light all around it. And sometimes that's as simple as it is when you have kind of straggly, scraggly plants. So give them a little more root space and a little more just room to grow out in their leaves, and they should do better that way. So get this cleaned up out of the way. We'll have a look at them. So I have 2 trays now. I thought I had 11 plants. It looks like I have 10, so that's okay. They'll be much happier here with just that little bit more space to put their roots out and expand that space, and then just to have this extra room around them will help them as well. This little guy is looking a little rough. Cut it back a little bit more than I maybe planned, but I think it'll come back out and actually probably be good for it in the end. Just looks a little severe. So I am going to take my watering can, and this is just a Root Booster 515-5 Pro Mix brand, and I'll adding this into my watering can. Give it a little mix. And I'll just give them all just a little shot of this. It'll help settle the soil in around the plants and just help give them a little bit of nutrients. Because like I said, these are planted pretty much in peat moss, so not a lot of nutrients happening there. And with some of the discoloration of the leaves, I think they would like a little bit of nutrients happening. This is also what I, hitting the leaves, this is also what I water my seedlings with. When I'm starting my seeds indoors, this is what I use to water my seedlings. Get the nice, strong, healthy roots for probably 90% of my seedlings. And then I usually go to a more granular fertilizer for my vegetables and like a seaweed or similar type liquid fertilizer for my flowers, as well as I usually put in my flower containers a slow release. So that's what I do for fertilizing. That'll just kind of help settle the soil in, give them just that little bit of nutrients in there just to kind of help them out a little bit. I think they're going to be really happy. I'm going to pop them back on the shelf here behind me on the grow lights, and I think this will be great. So we'll keep you up to date on how these go. And like I said, I'll be getting my tubers that are stored out fairly soon in the next few weeks to a month here and getting them started so we can have even more beautiful begonias in the spring. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.